Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this webinar to hear from those who were pilgrims on behalf of Equally Blessed at World Youth Day in Panama earlier this year. My name is Marianne Duddy Burke. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the Executive Director of Dignity USA, one of the partner organizations in Equally Blessed. And on behalf of Call to Action, Dignity USA, and New Ways Ministry, we're very grateful that you have joined us for this session tonight. We are planned to be together for about an hour. I do want to let folks know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available to other folks in the future. So if you have any concerns about anonymity, please, you can jump out and log back in using a different name or disguise your name in chat or anything like that. Or contact us afterwards and we'll try and figure out some other way to make sure that we don't endanger you in error. But we're really looking forward to a lively and informative session tonight. And part of that will be getting your interactions with the pilgrims. We invite you to send in comments and questions throughout the discussion. And you can do that either using the chat box. If you came in through Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little bubble that says chat. You can text EB100 to 22333, or you can comment on Facebook Live. And John Fremmel will be monitoring all of those communications and bringing your comments and questions into the final part of our session together. So thank you very much again for joining us. And with that, I would like to invite our pilgrims and the other panelists who are with us to introduce themselves. So Christine, do you mind saying a hello?
Yes, thank you, Marianne. My name is Christine Hayter-Winnett. I'm communications manager, which is one of the other organizations that's part of the Equally Blessed Coalition. And I am just so excited to hear from each of our pilgrims about their experience. As we might talk about later, Equally Blessed has a long kind of history of the last couple of years sending people to World Youth Day. And I am just so excited to hear from all of you. And on behalf of Call to Action, we're just so grateful for you and your presence. So I'm really excited to be able to represent Call to Action formally for this.
Thanks, Christine. And John, can you introduce yourself and explain your role, and then we'll turn to our pilgrims.
Absolutely. Thanks, Marianne. My name is John Fremmel. I am the coordinator of Equally Blessed. I've been in this position since 2015 and was introduced to Equally Blessed as a pilgrim in the 2015 World Meeting of Families. And so, as was mentioned a little bit earlier, we have a strong history of sending LGBTQI+ people and allies to these large Vatican-sponsored events, whether it be World Meeting of Families or World Youth Day in locations all over the world. And I'm so grateful and have been so lucky and blessed to work with these 6 fantastic pilgrims who you all are going to meet very shortly. They were a fantastic group. We worked so well together, and I couldn't have asked for a better group of people. So I'm so happy to introduce all of them to you now.
Hello, my name is Keith Hall. I'm from the DC area, and I'm actually a part of Dignity Washington, DC, and that's how I found out about Equally Blessed. My pronouns are he, him, his, and one of the best experiences that actually happened to me while in Panama was constantly being loved on by everyone that just embraced the LGBT community. So when we were wearing our sashes, just constantly being approached by, strangers that wanted a picture or wanted a hug. And that was just very encouraging to me.
Thanks, Keith. I forgot my pronouns, he, him, his.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I forgot mine too. She, hers.
Okay, Brianna, do you mind jumping in?
Sure. I'm Brianna. I am in Erie, Pennsylvania. I became a part of the Equally Blessed group. I was a part of Call to Action's 2030 Young Cohort first, and did my project this summer on the intersection of sexuality, gender, and spirituality. So this is something that I'm really interested in, and the trip was a really great experience, the pilgrimage to go on with this group of people. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'll pass it on to the next person.
Mark, would you talk about how you got connected? Mark, you're still muted.
Hello. So you just heard like nothing anyways. My name is Mark. I'm from Edmonton, Canada. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am part of Dignity Canada Dignité. And when I heard about the group coming to Panama, I asked the president of Dignity Canada if I could come. And he said, absolutely. So I was the adopted sibling of the group, and I was very happy to meet everyone and to do work with them. For me, what touched me the most, certainly, what Keith mentioned, and Brianna, wonderful experiences I shared as well. But I think for me, it was the homilies that Pope Francis gave and how we were truly living out what he was saying. At the opening mass, the Archbishop of Panama quoted Pope Francis as saying that Catholics are called to shake things up. And I think we did that. And he also said to make adults feel nervous. And certainly when we were walking around wearing our rainbow sashes, there were many a clergy who looked upon us with eyes of perhaps nervousness and feelings of nervousness. And that really challenged them. And I was blessed to be part of that. And the other big thing for me was, to be able to do this not by myself, but to do it with such great supporters, and to find other great allies and people in our Catholic family that were willing to stand with and for us too.
Thank you, Mark. Really nice to have you join the US team. Two of our pilgrims are actually in cars as we speak. I'm gonna go ahead and ask them to go next. So Melly and then maybe Cooper. Does that work? Melly's.
Okay, here we go. Just trying to get it unmuted. So my name is Melly. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm involved.
Oh, looks like Melly went back on mute somehow.
Hey. Am I back?
Go. You're back.
Okay. So I'm part of the Dignity Indianapolis community and a new addition to the Dignity USA board, which is pretty exciting. I think for me, the strongest memory, or the thing I remember most from Panama, was the experience of asking a question during catechesis. We had gone as a group to one of the English-speaking catechesis events. And as the bishop finished his presentation, we realized they were going to be taking questions live and in person. And so we kind of made a decision that we wanted to ask a question as a group, and I volunteered to be the one to go forward. So I was standing in this line for what felt like forever, but it was probably just a few minutes, kind of watching the line move slowly and checking the time and wondering if they would have time for me. And they actually stopped the questions I was maybe the second or third person in line when they decided to end the period of questioning. So I was pretty dejected and feeling a little disappointed. And, you know, like all of my nervous energy had been for naught. And so started to walk back to where I was sitting. And as I was walking back, I was stopped by a young man who said to me, you know, what were you planning to say? So I kind of told him, you know, I was planning to ask about my experience as an LGBT Catholic. And he just said, well, I wish I could have heard the answer to that. And so I just decided that maybe there was time for one more question. So I marched right back up and flagged down a volunteer and had asked them if they were certain that there wasn't time for one more question. And again, I waited for what felt like a very long time. And finally, the moderator came over to speak with me, and I kind of shared with him what I wanted to say. And he said, well, we're really short on time, so if it's okay with you, I'll just ask the question for you. And I said, no, that's not okay with me. And as we continued to go back and forth, I just kept saying, you know, it's really important that I'm able to say this myself. I want to ask this question myself. And finally, he handed me a microphone. So I asked, I forget exactly what I said, but I just said, you know, one of the things I really appreciate about the Catholic Church is the way that we value the dignity of human people. But that as an LGBT Catholic, I often feel that my dignity is not respected, and just kind of asked him to respond to that. And his, you know, the bishop's response was okay. It was very pastoral. In some ways, I think it was better than what I was expecting. He didn't try to quote scripture or bring up any intrinsically disordered kind of theological language. But he also didn't really answer the question. He just kind of talked about his role being to, you know, to bring people to Christ and to bring Christ's message to people. I think, you know, that in the end, there's probably no answer. I think the experience of having a voice like mine, a voice like ours, be heard in that space. After the question and answer period finished, as I was kind of walking back to join the group, I was stopped by a number of people who wanted to thank me and come out to me and talk to me. One person in particular really stands out. There was a group leader from Togo in Africa who came over and hugged me tightly and said, and who told me that he was also gay, and that, you know, no one else had knew that he hadn't really come out to people. And so I told him that he wasn't alone, and I gave him one of our buttons, which he put on the inside of his shirt. That really just stood out to me and spoke to me about the need for voices like ours to be heard in the church. You know, this person who wanted so badly to reach out to us and to speak to us, but then also had hid the button that we gave him so that it couldn't be seen by anyone else.
Wow, so moving. Thank you, Melly. Cooper, I hope you're in a place where it's safe for you to talk.
Hi, I actually just made it home. My name is Cooper. I use they, them pronouns. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We're sharing something I ate dinner with these, I think they were in high school, these high schoolers from Panama, and they asked like what group I was with or like what school I was with. And I told them that I was with Equally Blessed, and they were kind of thrilled to learn that we were gay and Catholic. And the way that I came to find out about this is through Dignity USA.
Thanks so much, Cooper. Let's see. Catherine, welcome. Glad you could make it. Can you tell us a little of your story?
Surely. So my name is Catherine. I use she, her pronouns. I first got involved with the Equally Blessed Coalition through writing for New Ways Ministry. I've been started writing for them since early this past summer, so not too long, but I've wanted to do this kind of work for a while, and it feels like a really good place. In that way. So like everyone's been saying, it was so great to go with this group in particular, to see so many hundreds of people who were thrilled to see us there. In particular, that kind of first walk down, there's this big boulevard, like on the very first day we had our rainbow buttons and we were giving out tons and tons. And so that was a really moving experience, very exciting. We felt kind of like celebrities. We could only walk 10 feet, but we kept getting stopped for a picture. And so that was wonderful. I think one of the big things that stands out to me that I'm taking away from this experience was the relationships that we built with some local Panamanian leaders. So there was a lot of people that we met kind of through social media who wouldn't otherwise have been connected with World Youth Day, and they sort of found out about our group, and that was kind of their in for that whole experience. And so that was really, really moving. There was a few, this is the pictures of them all here. So a few people in particular really made a point to kind of go around with us, give us a whole tour of their city, talk to us all about the work that they're doing as leaders in their own LGBTQ communities. And afterwards, we've kind of gotten word since that they're continuing to organize, that a lot of the people that kind of got connected through us in some ways, not even just these leaders, but other people who saw us on social media, are continuing to organize. And so it feels like this work is really going to be ongoing, which I'm really hopeful and excited about.
Thank you, Catherine. And I know that John and I have been in touch with a number of those leaders, and we'll be trying to build on the work you all started, and hope some of you will participate in that as it moves forward. So thank you. And Evan.
All right, unmuted. Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Vaughn. I live in San Francisco, California. I first got connected to the Equally Blessed Coalition by being involved in some of the ministries of Call to Action when I was in my undergrad years at the University of San Francisco. So the Jesuits first got me connected to Call to Action, but this was a much more participatory way to really be involved with Equally Blessed was by going on this pilgrimage to World Youth Day in Panama. The trip was a lot in a really beautiful way, just to take in so many people's responses to our presence and what it represented for us to be there, to be out, to be visibly queer. I use he, him, his pronouns. Sorry, just forgot that. And I think one experience that that's coming to mind immediately is when we wore our rainbow sashes or had rainbow flags most every day. And there was one time that we were walking through one of the parishes in the old town in Casco Viejo, and I had a little bit of a sense of shame of wearing this rainbow sash on me inside the church, and it was hard because I knew that I shouldn't feel that way. It completely went against every part of me, of the reasons that I was there and I was wanting to be in Panama. And I knew that just came from this really deep intrinsic place of how I've grown up with there being a disconnect between those who are queer and the Catholic Church. And it was hard for me to even admit that to myself, that was hard for me. I live a very openly gay and openly Catholic life here in San Francisco, and it's something that I realize much more now how privileged I am to have those identities come together. And so that was hard for me to have that feeling inside that church, walking around, knowing that what I was doing was right and that there was beauty in it, but still having negative feelings that came with that.
Evan, I imagine there were lots of people who were part of World Youth Day who might have been experiencing that same tension or that same question about can they really be there as all of who they are. And, you know, I'm glad you had a supportive group to experience that in and were there to bear witness to that. I think most of you have had a chance to share a special moment or so, but Brianne, I don't think that we heard one from you. Would you like to take a moment to do that? And if anybody else has thought of something else, we can circle back to you in a moment.
Sure, thank you. So there's two things that really stick out to me. The first was on our first day, we were wearing our rainbow sashes. Well, I think maybe Evan was the only one that was wearing it at first, but we had the buttons out. And this young woman came over to us, and she was like, "Where are you all from?" really hesitantly. And we told her we're from the US, but we're an LGBT Catholic group. And she was like, "Hold on, I have to go get my friend." So she ran over and got her friend, and she came back, and her friend just started sobbing as soon as she saw us. And this is her friend here in the picture. And she was just so happy to see us. And she pulled out her own little rainbow flag that she had been carrying around. And she said, "This morning we ran into a priest who was saying some pretty homophobic statements. And it was really hard for me. And I didn't know, do I fit here? Like, is this a place where I belong?" And to see your group just really affirms that maybe I can be Catholic and I can be LGBT, or I can be a part of this church. So that was really exciting. And that was just such a good way to like start off the whole week too, of having someone who we like knew right away that she had been moved just by our presence alone. And the second thing that was really important for me was we walked around often, like Catherine was saying at one point, and we were kind of like celebrities. We couldn't get 10 feet without taking pictures, stopping to take pictures with people, which was fun but difficult when we were trying to get anywhere. And there was this one time that a reporter came up and she just took a picture, and then she asked if she could have an interview. And at first I didn't understand where she said she was from. So I was like, "Okay, sure, we'll do the interview. That's okay." And she was asking me questions about, why we're here and why is this important. And I talked about, how some of the people in our group, or some of the people who we know, have been either fired from their jobs, or, have had experiences that were really negative with their jobs that seemed like some kind of vocation for them, just because they might identify as LGBTQ. And so we talked some about that. And then after we finished the interview and she went on and she was talking to Melly, then I said to John, "Who was she with?" And he said, "Oh, she's from the Vatican. She was a Vatican radio person." And so that was really exciting. And I've been in contact with her since. Now, she told me that she wasn't able to publish the article with the Vatican because, well, I guess we can all make assumptions why. But she is going to try and find another place that she can publish the article, or at least continue to do this kind of work. And so I think that was really important for me too, to see that, there are people in the media, even in the Vatican, who want to spread our message and let others know that it's okay to be LGBTQ and be in the Catholic Church, but also that we want equality in the church and we want to be able to practice all the same sacraments as everybody else and have the same kind of dignity given to our families. So those were my two experiences that were really important and powerful.
Really great confirmations of the need for you all to be there and be bearing witness, and another indication that, you answer the call of the Spirit and you just never know where you're going to be heard. So that's awesome. Did anybody else think of another incident that you wanted to share before we move on?
This is John. Kind of in a similar vein to what Evan had said, there was a time when we were at an English language catechesis, and I'll try to get the picture up here on the screen. We just honestly didn't feel quite as welcome at the English language catechesis sessions as we did everywhere else in World Youth Day, when there was a more global population around us. But for some reason, during Mass, I just felt called to check with a few other people. I think Brianna and Melly were the closest ones, so I tapped them on the shoulder, and I said, "Why don't we hold up our sign right now? Like, let's go to the back where the priest can see us during the consecration. Let's hold up our sign, and let's send a message. No one else will be able to see us because everyone else is going to be facing the stage, but those priests who are facing out towards us, towards the people, they'll be able to see our sign." And so I did that. The three of us did that. And I felt kind of odd in the moment, though, because on the one hand, we were making a statement. We were quite literally in that moment claiming our place at the table. We were claiming our spot in the church, and yet I felt very conscious and aware that there were people close by staring at us, maybe not approving of what we were doing, maybe not thinking that it was the appropriate venue to send this message to the priests. And so I personally tried to be as respectful as I could in the moment. When the priest held up the host during consecration, I bowed my head as low as I could. But still, I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad all three of us did it. And I know at least a few of them on the stage saw us, and that's what it was about.
Thank you, John. Can you all share a little bit? It sounds like social media was really a way for you to connect with people. I know I've had the privilege of hearing some of your stories, but that you were able to connect both with people who were part of World Youth Day and people beyond that circle. Can you talk some about how you used social media to do that and some of the kinds of connections that you made through that medium?
Sure, I can share a bit about that. So we had people in our group who were really responsible for being active on social media on different days. When it came to our Instagram, when it came to our Twitter, Brianna was really killing it when it came to making sure that people knew what we were up to. And that's how we actually met some of the queer advocates in Panama, was them seeing the Equally Blessed hashtag, them hearing about us. By the end of the week, there were people who were coming up to us saying, "Oh, are you all equally blessed?" They'd actually heard of us. They knew about us because people had been posting about it. And then I want to give a shout out to Keith too, who was very good at making sure he always told everyone the hashtag. Whenever they came by, said hello, took pictures. We all actually worked pretty hard to take on different roles of how we interacted with different people around us to say, this is who we are, this is what we represent, this is our experience. And we would switch off with who was photographing, who was translating, who was handing out the buttons and the cards. And it was just so fantastic to keep making sure that people understood Equally Blessed. This is who we are. This is what we represent. This is how you can find us. This is how you can learn more about us. And that's how people became more connected. And then would someone else like to share about the lunch that we had later on in the week?
I can say something about that briefly. Yeah, so that was one of, again, my favorite things about this experience, was getting to see all these people who might not otherwise have been, maybe felt isolated from the church in some way. And I think that this lunch was one of the coolest things. I took over the Twitter for a couple of days. At least one person at the lunch found out about it through Twitter, and that was kind of a empowering thing, that he came for that, and just seeing the posts get retweeted and shared and kind of go wider, and people, I saw someone tag us in a post oh, they're going to be at Asadas in a couple of days, make sure you see them there, so like Evan said, people were finding out about us through social media, and we weren't even always the ones to tell them, which was really, really exciting. I think Instagram was probably the most widely used one, but it was cool to see the different venues. We did a Facebook live stream once or twice, which was pretty exciting and fun to kind of bring people into the moment of here's us kind of walking in this crowd with our banner, and people kind of feel like they were there, which was pretty cool.
I remember early on reading a story, I forget who posted it, about someone who got one of your buttons and sent pictures of it to their friends back in Colombia. And there was a young woman from Bogota who was really feeling very depressed, and knowing that you were there and seeing the picture of the button, she was asking her friend, bring me back buttons. So, yeah, I think your impact was just incredibly far-reaching. It sounds like most of your experience was very positive. Is that true? And did you feel any or experience any kind of resistance to the message of inclusion and, your right to visibility there?
I think I'd like to share something about the outreach and the extent of it that I thought was really touching, is that a lot of the folks who came up to us were, cradle Catholics, but have left the church. And I think that our witness really re-sparked their Christianity, their Catholicism, and caused them to think anew about, why are these people even here? Is this how is this possible that these LGBT Catholics have been able to somehow, be authentically LGBTQ plus and also be people of faith? And that kind of got wheels turning, particularly for the LGBT community. I would say for everyone else too, but if we're talking about new evangelization and reaching out to the marginalized, simply our presence, I think, caused that to happen.
I could also mention some more about the not as positive responses that we got. There were it was overwhelmingly positive for a majority of the time, which was a beautiful experience. But there were two individuals that came up to us on two different occasions, just asking a lot of questions. They one man on the night of the opening mass was a little more aggressive and eventually calmed down through some conversation. And then there was another towards the end of the week who he was a bit younger, probably in his late teens or early 20s, who he just couldn't put it together being queer and Catholic, or at least living a full out queer life and being Catholic. And I actually became not frustrated, but a little shut down with each of them, to the point where those of us in the group who were much more ready to carry on the conversation, I was happy to let them do that. But from what I was able to tell in the beginnings of the discussion, it was that it was coming from just a place of really not understanding. It seemed like with both of these gentlemen that they hadn't really experienced someone who could be queer and be a person of faith, how those two things didn't intertwine for them. So I guess what I'm saying is it came from a place of ignorance, yet I don't really know if either was really ready to learn as they were asking their questions. But they were able to dialogue, so there's some positivity in that. I'll leave it at that in case anyone else who did talk to these guys for a bit longer has more to say about that.
Yeah, I talked to the second person that Evan had referenced for a little bit of time, and I think I had maybe a more positive experience with them than Evan did. When I kind of came into the dialogue, I just wanted to kind of tell him a little bit more about my story. My wife and I were married just over a year ago, and she wasn't able to travel with us to Panama, but I really wanted to bring her story with us as well. And so I was able to kind of share with this gentleman a little bit more about my wife and I and our relationship, and the ways that I really feel like being with her has made me a better Catholic, has made me holier, has helped my faith to grow, the way that she challenges me, the way that we try to be of service together to the world. And so, I don't think that any minds were changed, but I felt like he was receptive to hearing a little bit more about my family. And so I overall felt like it was a positive experience, and that even if his mind wasn't changed, his heart was opened a little bit to the witness of our group.
Great. Anyone else want to address that? If not, I'll just remind folks that we really want to engage with the folks who are participating in this session. John, I know you said we have a couple of questions from Facebook. You want to bring one of those to the fore?
Sure. So first of all, Jennifer Valdez is a pilgrim from Rio. She just said that she loved following our journey. So thank you for commenting that, Jennifer. And Martine Witchker is a member of the board of Dignity USA, and he welcomes Melly to the board. Marie did ask if we can talk a bit about our use of social media. I think we covered that a few minutes ago. So Marie, if you missed that, maybe when you replay this, you can skip back a few minutes. And Michael Z says, thank you for your work. I've been so hurt by the church. I was so committed. As soon as I came out, I was rejected. I'm also rejected by my own sister as I married my partner. I support you and wish I could do what you all are doing. Let me know how I can help. It's wonderful to hear your stories. Maybe there's some healing for all of us. So kind of a comment, but also asking for some suggestions on how Michael might be able to help us in the future.
Thanks, John. Anybody have suggestions about how folks can kind of do this work from where they are? Or, I mean, we certainly will be looking for pilgrims, I hope, for the next World Youth Day, but there's a couple of years between now and then. I mean, how have you continued doing this work since you've been home?
I've made sure to be a lot more out, which I didn't think was necessarily possible or necessary here in San Francisco. I'm very blessed that my church that I attend, Most Holy Redeemer in the Castro district here in San Francisco, is very, very queer. It's mostly queer parishioners that are there. So that's always been a safe space where I can bring the two identities together really well. But I put a few more rainbows in my office here at work, and I'm a counselor at a Catholic school. And it's never been an issue with my administration or leaders here, but it's still me being cognizant of working at a Catholic school. But what the trip really taught me is how I need to make this identity so much more, I need to put it out there even more than I already have. So others feel safe, so others feel that they can do it too, to be encouraging for my students and also just for anyone I interact with. I think that me being the most authentic I can and being out encourages others to do so, whether it's connected to their sexuality or another identity. It was actually fantastic. Just yesterday, I had one of my freshmen come out to me, and it was a very easy conversation, but she started with, "Hey, Mr. Vaughn, do you have a second?" "Oh, sure." She said, at the beginning of the conversation, "You're gay, right?" And I was floored. Like, my sexuality is not something that I tend to bring up in conversation with my students, or do they ask me about my dating life or anything like that. I try to steer clear of that. And so once I moved on past that, "Okay, you're going for it." "Yes, I am. Why do you ask?" And she was just saying, talking about her comfort and how she identifies as bisexual and how she wants to be more open with people, but she's afraid of rejection, and just anything that a typical 14-year-old might ask, but also with this great understanding of herself that I wish I would have had at her age. But I took a moment afterward to realize how much I appreciated that I gave her a safe space to ask that, just in me being myself and in her being aware of my sexuality. The fact that I didn't hold that back in whatever setting she had determined it from before, whatever I had said, that outed myself in a really positive way to where she felt comfortable to talk to me about something that she's struggling with. So to answer your question, to really bring it back, it's just making sure to to wear this identity on my sleeve as often as I can and as often as I feel safe to do so, so it can be encouraging to others.
I've had a really great opportunity since I've come back. So I work with a bunch of sisters, Benedictine sisters, and they have asked me to share my story and experience with them. So of course I put together a little PowerPoint presentation and handed out buttons, but it was really wonderful. So I gave a few of my little presentations, some to the sisters that I work with and some to different people that volunteer with our ministry that we do. And I think that there are a lot of people who didn't necessarily realize what Equally Blessed is doing and what it meant for us to be pilgrims down at this trip. I think, they thought maybe we were either just pilgrims at World Youth Day or just going to an LGBT conference. And so to be putting it together was a really wonderful way to share. But the sisters really received our message well. And it was so sweet. Some of them put on their buttons right away. And the buttons that we handed out said, "It's our church too." And they have like a rainbow on them. And the sisters have been wearing their buttons since. So like every once in a while I'll come in and I'll be like, "Oh, you're wearing your button today," which is really powerful to me. I don't want to necessarily put, like clergy and sisters and everybody else like that has taken some kind of religious vow in a different area than where those of us who are lay people are, but it's also really nice to see those who are vowed to be really supportive in the ministry that we're doing too. So that's been really great, and they've encouraged me to continue doing this kind of ministry, and they're looking for ways that I can continue in Erie to talk to people about the intersection of sexuality, gender, and spirituality, specifically from a Catholic point of view. So it's been a really great opportunity coming back too.
Thanks, Brianna. Reverend Jerry on Zoom asks, did you all have any moments of affirmation from clergy or religious? Did any clergy come out to you?
Hi, me again. I didn't have any clergy come out to me or any actually conversations as far as with anyone that I know that was clergy, but the looks of affirmation as clergy who were group leaders passed by, or if they were walking 2 by 2, that was really warm, and that was really special to have that from leaders within the church.
Yeah, I also didn't have like anyone come out to me, but definitely we talked to a couple supportive clergy. I remember there was a nun at that first day when we were at the mall and we saw all those people, and she took the buttons and kind of distributed it to her whole group, which was pretty fun and exciting. I know there's a picture of Brianna at that one English language session with a priest who took the button, which was one of like the most liked pictures on social media. Everybody was all excited to see that because he's clearly like very proud to be wearing it. He's got his collar on all there. And so, yeah, like she said, I don't think, necessarily they're in a different category, but there is that, kind of hierarchy affirmation. It's nice to see an official, someone with a collar and our button there both together. I think is pretty exciting. I do remember I had one conversation with a seminarian who I didn't know was a seminarian until like well into our conversation. And I don't remember it being like all that unusual of a conversation in general, kind of giving our pitch, explaining what we were doing as we always did. But it was kind of nice because I don't think I like held anything back in the way I was explaining it, where maybe if I knew it had been a clergy person from the beginning, I might have, framed things differently, phrased it a little more carefully, cautiously. So it was kind of nice that I just kind of gave my usual, here's our spiel. And then at the end, he said, "Oh, I'm in the seminary," and kind of smiled and shook my hand and left, So I think there's definitely like plenty of little moments like that.
I had kind of a unique experience. As I was on my way home, I was actually seated next to the Bishop of San Antonio on one of my flights. And so he slept most of the way, so we didn't have a lot of opportunity for conversation. But as we were starting our descent, he was kind of asking me if I had been at World Youth Day, and we were kind of chatting about our experiences. And I initially was hesitant to say anything about Equally Blessed. I was just tired and of how a bishop would receive our message. But I did finally muster up the courage and kind of a little bit about a group. I had my backpack with me as my carry-on bag, and it's our church 2 buttons was right on the front. And so he looked at me and he said, I'm glad that you felt comfortable there. After all, as your button says, it is your church too. And so I gave him the button off my backpack. He didn't put it on, but he did put it in his pocket. And I felt like it was a really positive exchange. So that's another moment that really stands out to me.
I think Catherine alluded to this, but I really enjoyed meeting the sister from Chile who, as we walked past, I think she kind of stood up and said, "Oh, I do this kind of work in Chile. I work with people who are of like sexual orientation minorities," or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how she worded it, but it was pretty much in a way that we knew that she was doing the same kind of work there. And that it was just really nice to hear from someone that she's doing the same kind of work in a different part of the world.
Lauren Carpenter on Facebook asks, what did you learn from the Panamanian LGBTQ leaders about what it's like for people to be LGBTQ in Panama?
And I just want to mention that, Cooper, you're still on the phone. If you want to chime in, we'd love to hear from you too.
Sorry, I've been muted. I didn't realize that. We were in the car going to somewhere with Pal, who's a trans man in Panama, and he was telling us how extremely hard it is to like change your name and things like that, which I thought was interesting, and how there are like these outdated kind of like laws and you can kind of do it. I think what stuck with me the most, other than like realizing that like legality issues, is Evan and I were interviewed by this gay couple who lives in Panama, and they have a YouTube channel on like, I think it's on like their life, like what they do in their free time, and that they had like a lot of followers from Panama, because there were a lot of like visibly gay couples, which I thought was super interesting, because if I live in Philly, which is pretty queer friendly, and if you had a YouTube channel on your gay, like if you were a gay couple and had like a YouTube channel, like it would not really be popular, I don't think. But like the fact that it's popular in Panama, I think is like super interesting, because it kind of showcases that there's not like a lot of visibility there.
I would agree that a lack of visibility is what I found to be a common thread through most queer people that we met who live in Panama, is that their issues and the things that they deal with and what they face, it's not being talked about. So it's a silent type of oppression. So what Alvaro and Guille, the two gentlemen that we met who are part of Estos Dos Manes, which means these two guys, what they're doing is really special to just kind of normalize, this is a couple and this is their life and these are the things they do and this is what they represent, because there aren't enough people having conversations about supporting queer people, let alone just about queer people in general in Panama.
I would just say too, it felt to me like we were filling such a void. So many people, I mean, I don't want to like repeat what's already been said, but I mean, so many people came up to us and were just so amazed that we were just there, that we were visible, that we were present. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize there's just not anything for people who identify as LGBTQI plus and Catholic. Um, many of the LGBTQI groups that exist in Latin America, especially, are very anti-religious, and of course, the church is very anti-LGBTQ in many senses, or people within the church are, and so I got the impression that we were just a breath of fresh air for so many people. Zach Johnson from Call to Action has asked, what do you all think is the point of World Youth Day in the minds of the institutional church? How is that the same or different from your perspective of the point of World Youth Day? And I, to kind of clarify that, and an email that Zach sent to me earlier, he was mentioning, like, is it for vocations? Is it to create a positive image for the church? What exactly is the institutional church's perspective on why they do World Youth Day? And what do you think?
I think I can speak to this a little bit, having taken a course on World Youth Day with Tom Rosica, who ran World Youth Day in Toronto. He talked about one of the great insights of, I think it was John Paul II, who started the World Youth Day movement, is that pilgrims experience a sense of universality, that we as Catholics, as one body, experience the diversity of our family. And you really do get that sense. You walk around and see hundreds of thousands of pilgrims with different skin tones and waving different flags. And I think our presence really does celebrate and acknowledge that part of this great diversity as the body of Christ is that there are also LGBTQ plus sisters and brothers among us, and that's what makes us a strong and beautiful church, one in which God dwells in and guides and loves. To me, that's always one of the great gifts of World Youth Day. And certainly vocation. I think, when a young Catholic sees how they could be authentically themselves in a diversity of ways, that's also a great gift of World Youth Day. And I think our presence signals to a young person, hey, I could also be, an LGBTQ plus Catholic. One of the reasons why I'm here right now is because when I went to my first Pride in 2002 in Vancouver, I saw Dignity Vancouver folks marching in the parade. And that said to me that it is possible. And so I think World Youth Day is powerful for lots of ways, particularly to honor one's identity and to find a place within that as disciples.
Any other thoughts on the impact or the meaning of World Youth Day? That was beautifully said, Mark. Thank you for that.
I'll just chime in real quick and say that, not to that question, but I just wanted you all to know that Henry on Facebook thanks all of us very much for our witness, and Bob Butts from Dignity wants to thank Melly especially for her courage to going up and asking her question, and he says, we're thrilled to have you on the board of Dignity USA. So thanks for that, Bob.
I'd like to share more about the question, Marianne.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan. Thank you.
So this was my third World Youth Day. I attended 2011 in Madrid and 2013 in Rio de Janeiro. And both times I was connected with my undergrad college, USF. And both were a whirlwind of just exposure and learning and excitement and meeting people, and this was similar to that. Those two experiences were, this is what being Catholic is for me. This is how I live out my faith. But this time it had a much more structured way of our group representing our identity. And I loved that. I loved being in Panama and having this purpose and how we connected with other people in this open, inclusive way of saying, this is how I live out my faith. This is how I'm Catholic. And this is how you can too, or this is how you can support me, or this is how you can support people like me. This is how we can all make the church a more beautiful place, a more inclusive place. And all throughout the week, we were talking like, okay, this is working. This is what we could do differently if we go to the next one. Like, and then as soon as Portugal was announced, I was even specifically talking to Mark. Okay, I think this is what we're going to do next time, and we could do this and have more people involved, and so more people can connect with us, and just making our presence known, not for us but for others. Just so, again, because what we want for ourselves is what we want for anyone like us, or anyone who feels ostracized by the church, to know that it is their church too, and that they have a place in it.
Wonderful. Thank you. I just want to say, on behalf of everyone who is on this call, on behalf of everyone who followed your pilgrimage, on behalf of all the folks who supported it, who held you in prayer, thank you to each and every one of you for taking on this, for leaving your families, for leaving your jobs, for bearing witness to all of our lives and our hopes for what our church can and should be. I also want to thank all of the folks who did support this pilgrimage in any way, whether it's through a financial gift, whether it was through prayer, whether it was through connecting and sending messages of support to the pilgrims. It really made a difference. I think we could talk for another hour easily, and I would encourage people who have not had a chance to do so to go to the Equally Blessed website and look up the blogs from the pilgrims and read about their experiences preparing for the pilgrimage while they were in Panama, as they came back. Look at the photos that they shared on Facebook, on Instagram, read the tweets. I think it will really just give you a sense of how these folks were there feeding the participants in World Youth Day, Panamanian LGBTQ community, and so many others, and really just being a sign of hope and presence for all. As folks have said, we'll be in Portugal next time. So as information for that becomes available, we hope to continue building this witness and building the community around it. So with that, I just really want to thank everybody for sharing tonight so beautifully, so powerfully, and again, for the work and witness that you were in Panama and continue to be in our world and in our church. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, you can contact us through Facebook or through our website, and we'll be happy to get back in touch with you. We'll send out a link to the recording once that is available, and feel free to share that information with others you think might benefit from experiencing this session. God bless everybody, and thank you.